Good evening, everyone from Lagos, Nigeria. And just as usual, like I normally say, good morning, good afternoon, and of course, good evening from wherever you're viewing from. Uh, this is another session of the Afro Business Innovators Conversation, an initiative of the International Solid Waste Association, Africa Regional Chapter, and this is the September 2024 edition. I'm live in Lagos, Nigeria. And I have a guest on the call, a man of many parts. You get to meet him in the course of this interview. And in a few minutes, 25, 30 minutes or thereabout, we'll be looking at the nexus between supply chain and environmental sustainability. He's an expert in supply chain and I think general logistics with big blue chips around the world. Guinness, Nigerian Breweries, Nigeria, I beg your pardon, Nigerian Bottling Company, PZ, Fusions, and so on and so forth. You get to meet him in a short while. I introduce to you Engineer Aderemi Adewoye. Good to have you on the call, Engineer.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me here today. It's a pleasure coming around there to talk about what I'm passionate about, sustainability, and of course, the relationship between sustainability and supply chain, which is something that I've been practicing for about 20 years.
Wow. Thank you so very much. Thank you for your time. I do not take that for granted. And of course, the feeling is mutual to have you on the call. All right, I'm going to lay it back without wasting much time, without much ado. Just before we delve into the deep waters of supply chain and how it affects sustainability, environmental sustainability, I'd just like to ask you, I've been on your profile on LinkedIn for five minutes or thereabout now. You seem to have a very intimidating profile. Only you have worked with Nigerian Bottling Company, the big names around, Guinness Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Can you take us through this profile and your wealth of experience? It's huge, I must say.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much once again for this opportunity. I think the profile is really not intimidating. Yeah, I studied mechanical engineering from University of Ilorin, graduated around 2001, and started my career with PZ courses as a management trainee, right? So it was supposed to be a 1-year full program to take me to the practice of engineering, right? So I went through that for a year. Then I started my substantive role as reliability engineer for the organization. A few years after I joined the organization, I moved into different roles. And I decided to move into another organization, Guinness Nigeria. My last role in PZ Cousin was total preventive maintenance facilitator and a production manager for the detergent packaging plant. Right, so I moved into Guinness Nigeria as a shift manager. Because of my interest in engineering and operation improvement, I continue to seek knowledge, right, in terms of operation improvements, and this helped me grow my career in Guinness Nigeria. I was in Guinness Nigeria for about 8 years. I did different roles. My last role then was engineering manager in one of the sections, packaging sections for that organization. Then I decided to move to Nigerian Bottling Company, where I spent 5 years. I joined as engineering manager for their plant in Ibadan. And I had a good career in Nigerian Bottling Company. I moved into different roles, continuous improvements, and at a time manufacturing manager. Then I left as plant manager for their biggest plant in Nigeria. I decided to go to join Guinness again in 2020, right? And I've continued to have a very good career in Guinness Nigeria, PSC. I started as plant manager, moved into logistic role, and today I'm leading the supply function for the organization.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say that you are fulfilled considering your career progression and trajectory. Do you consider yourself a fulfilled man?
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
Okay, I said it's safe to say that you are fulfilled in your career progression. You feel fulfilled.
Yeah, see, for me, I think what is important is one just need to be happy with whatever you are doing, right? So for me, any opportunity that I have to add value to organization, right? Move the organization from a point to another better point, opportunity to work with people and see people grow, right? And, aspiring into, fulfilling their dreams, right?
Yeah.
I think for me, that's what fulfillment is all about, right? So I'm still on that journey. I thank God for what I've done so far, but I'm happy that I've been able to impact people and I've been able to impact organization, and there are still so much to do.
You can say that again. One of the elements of circular economy is, the kind of impact you make, social impact, which is very key. You can say that again. So I'm just going to lay the bar straight to the point. How sustainable is the business of the supply chain business, if you want to add logistics in the Nigeria and Africa of today? Of course, looking at, I would say, your wealth of experience, the challenges that you have encountered in the line of your duty, and how have you been able to prefer solutions to these challenges? So it's a 2-in-1 question. Or if I would say 3-in-1, of course, the last one will bring us to the connection between supply chain and environmental sustainability. So okay. How is it going?
Thanks so much. Thanks so much. See, I always like to start discussion like this by going to the fundamentals, right? In terms of defining what we are talking about.
All right.
So let me just start by defining what supply chain is, right? And I'm going to give a generic definition here, right? So supply chain is the entire process of producing and delivering products or services, right? And what that means is it comes from raw material to the final customer, right? So from this definition, you will see that we have different players, different stakeholders, or what I call different entities that are involved in this transformation of goods, right? Transformation of raw materials, movement of goods to the final destination, right? So supply chain comprises of different players. You have the supplier, you have the manufacturer, you have the warehousing, distribution, retailers, and of course, customers, right? So that's the definition of supply chain and the different players that are involved, right, in this field. If I now talk about sustainability, right, you see that sustainability means the practice of meeting our own current need without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs, right? So it is about us not being selfish while meeting our needs, right? We have discussed, and you mentioned one of the pillars when it comes to supply chain, right? Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I want to lay the foundation for our discussion, right? So that we see the link between supply chain and environment, and of course, sustainability. So there are three major pillars, which is basically the environmental part, the social part, and the economic part. The one I will focus on today is basically on environmental, right? So you will see that I've said there are different players when it comes to supply chain, right? Conversion of raw materials to finished goods. This means during the process of this conversion, we are abstracting raw materials, right? And some of those raw materials can be, of course, as basic as water, right? As basic as material that we abstract from the environment, right? So as supply chain practitioner, we need to be conscious of the fact that while we are trying to meet the needs of the present population of people, we also need to be conscious of the fact that we should not jeopardize the ability of the future generation to meet their own need, right? So what that means is that as supply chain practitioner, we should start talking about how do we conserve, the biodiversity and ecosystem. What do we need to do, right, to reduce pollution and waste? What do we need to do to minimize the use of resources, right? So that we will leave those resources also for the future generation. And how do we reduce our impact on the environment, right? So if you therefore go back to the different aspects of supply chain, you will begin to see the possible impact that we can create on environment as supply chain practitioner, right? In terms of what we do from end to end of supply chain, from abstracting resources, from transportation of goods, you will see our footprint on the environment. So the work we have to do as supply chain practitioner is how do we reduce our footprint? How do we minimize resources, right? So that we not negatively impact environment and we give opportunity for the future generation to also meet their own need. So that's where I come in as supply chain practitioner.
Great. You said something that is striking. I find it very profound and instructive. You mentioned the fact that part of this chain is to reduce our carbon footprint. When it comes to so more often than not, people mix up, or let me say, people misinterpret or take logistics to mean supply chain. So I'm going to ask you: is logistics part of transportation logistics, especially? Is it a microcosm of supply chain, or what's the difference between supply chain and logistics? Just briefly.
Okay. Thank you for that good question. Yeah, logistics is part of supply chain.
Oh,
right?
Okay, great.
Supply chain is a big field, right? And like I said, when we talk about supply chain, we are talking about supplier, right, of raw material or components into a factory, for instance, right? So we are talking about the factory itself, where the conversion takes place, right? They convert the raw material to finished goods, right? Then after conversion of the raw material, we talk about warehousing this raw material. So we have a part of supply chain that has to do, with warehousing. Then we talk about distributors, retailers, and customers. If I define it, right, differently, supply chain is basically a composition of what we call plan, right, which has to do with what do we need to produce, what do we need to sell, right? They talk about forecasting, right? Determining what customers want to buy, in what quantity, in what format, and all the rest, right? Then when this is planned, then we move into what we call source. And source is about procurement, what we basically call procurement, right? So source has to do with how do we now buy those components, right? That we convert to the finished goods. Then we talk about make. Make has to do with manufacturing, conversion of those raw materials that procurement has sourced, right? To be able to deliver the products that customer needs, right? Then from make, when the material is finally converted, then we move into what we call move. And that's where logistics comes in, right? So logistics is a form, a part of supply chain that we call move, right? So that now includes warehousing, transportation, and other fulfillment, right? So to summarize, logistics is a part of supply chain.
Thank you so very much. So I'll be running off very soon. I'm just curious now. What words have you for people who wants to venture into this supply chain business, starters, and what should they look out for in the line of their duty, so as not to compromise the environment? Okay, more like asking you that, of course, for beginners or for starters, what are the innovations, probably technological innovations around supply chain that will not compromise the environment?
Okay.
In any of the value chain, whether transportation, warehousing. For newbies, what do you advise?
Okay, so thank you for that question. See, permit me to talk about the challenges that we are facing, right?
Okay, yes, please.
When it comes to supply chain, then we now talk about the different innovation, right?
Okay.
Those challenges are...
Please, permit me to interrupt you. And also how the challenges, how it has compromised the environment, and what are the things, innovative solutions to mitigate those effects, the negative impact of the innovations around supply chain to the environment in particular.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for that. All right. So when it comes to supply chain, if you go back to my definition and you go back to what I've said about the different aspects of supply chain, you will begin to see where supply chain can impact the environment, right?
Okay.
So,
okay.
And if you come back to our climate here, you see, let's talk about transportation,
okay,
right, that you mentioned. You see, because of the different issues we have around poor transportation network, right? We talk about bad roads, right? Congested ports. And you know what that means for supply chain practitioner, right? And I will give you an instance. So you are supposed to transport goods from location A to location B, right? And if you look at the shortest route, to reach location B, let's say it's about 600 kilometers, right? But the challenge we have when it comes to poor transportation network, poor bad roads, means that as supply chain practitioner, you now need to start looking at alternative routes because the shortest distance between point A and point B are probably bad, right? And these are locations that you cannot easily navigate, right? Otherwise, delivery will be delayed, right? So as supply chain practitioner, as a logistic operator, you need to look for alternative routes. So a 600-kilometer journey will most likely turn to 1,200 kilometers. And you know what that means? What it means is that you are burning more fuel. And in this part of the world, we are talking about fossil fuel, AGO, right? So you burn more fuel, you emit more carbon into the atmosphere, right? And you are compromising the environment, right? It's part of what we talk about when it comes to sustainability. So you will see how the impact of bad road network, right, is leading to the generation of additional generation of carbon, right, into the atmosphere. Of course, I don't want to talk about costs, right, because this is not the scope of this, of this discussion, right? So let me also quickly go to energy dependency and emission, right?
I like that. Yes.
Yeah, in this part of our world, right, specifically in Nigeria, you see because of poor power availability from the grid, right? Almost all the elements of supply chain, I've spoken about manufacturer, supplier, distributor, right, retailers. They have become they are now generating their own power, right? And what you see is that we are not even generating power from clean energy. We are generating power from using fossil fuel, right? Compressed natural gas network is out of reach, right? And what you see is people are now generating power from source of energy that are not clean. And what that means is that we are continuously polluting the environment, right? Because of the fact that we have insufficient power, from the grid, right? So energy dependency and emission is also a big deal when it comes to challenges that supply chain practitioners of today in our country are also facing, right? There is also a bit around waste management and recycling that I want to talk about. And you are an expert, right, when it comes to this. We have waste coming from packaging materials. Somebody told me that we are, I don't know the right word to use here. We are putting all our products, now we are putting in sachet, right? Because the purchasing power of the consumer keeps reducing on a daily basis, right? So we are putting all the products in sachet. And you know what that means for our environment, right? And these products are not disposed the right way, right? So you see them littering all the places, right? Going into the ocean, right? And impacting the ecosystem. So we have lots of environmental pollution, right? And this is impacting our world, is impacting our environment. I'm aware that government is trying to put a policy around this, right? Lagos State government banned the use of styrofoam at a point in time, right? So this is a big deal, right? And it's coming from supply chain. So at a point in time, we also need to start looking at what do we need to do differently so that we can minimize our impact on environment. Enforcement is also another challenge, right? Lack of enforcement. We have the laws, we have the rules, right? But how do we enforce, right? So even if you say people should not use styrofoam, people should not use, single-use plastic, right? How do you enforce that, right? In an environment that is largely, very, very corruptive, I put it that way, right? So we have a lot to do when it comes to regulation enforcement, right? So that's also part of the challenges that we face as supply chain practitioner. And apart from this, low level of awareness and education, right? So, and let me use my personal example, right? When I go to laundry, right? I see my laundry man always giving me plastics, right? Nylon bags upon nylon bag. And I say, no, you don't need to do this, right?
Exactly.
I can bring my own bag, right? I can bring my
That's
own
sustainable
bag.
lifestyle. Yes.
Yeah, I said so. Why do you need to keep giving me plastics, right? Which are we probably not disposed rightly, right? If you go to supermarket, right, you see people giving out plastics, right? Why do we need to keep doing that, right? So we are impacting the environment negatively. So we need awareness, we need education, we need to let our people know the impact of, what they are doing on, on the environment, right? I've spoken about the challenges,
Yes.
right? But what can we do? What can we do differently, right?
Especially that is I'm sorry to interrupt you again. You just said something. Okay, like for instance, I told the guy that launders my shirts, he will put each shirt in different sachet bags. Like, I said, you have to stop this. I understand your packaging. You want to package, you want to make your business, but please, for me, just a bag is okay. You can put all my shirts in one bag. 6, 7.
Absolutely.
We have to cut down. We have to downsize our approach on our lifestyle. That is very key to sustain the environment. And you also want to mention something. Oh, I just lost my line of thought now. You were
Yeah,
saying,
I mean, you are right, right?
yes.
I also don't, yeah. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So okay. So now we've enumerated we've said the challenges. We can't continue to. I will not use the word blame game on the government. In your own capacity as a professional, as a practitioner in this field, what have you been doing? What are the solutions that you have preferred to some of these challenges, especially with the organizations you have worked with? What are the ideas you have brought to the table? Workable ideas, solution, and that it has worked. And you have fulfilled that, okay, yes, engineer Adewoye, I was able to do this. I carried out a visibility program. This worked. This is my solution to this particular challenge. Can you just state one or two in the line of your duty in any of the companies you've worked for? What you have personally, the solutions you have personally preferred to one of these supply chain challenges?
Absolutely. So thank you for that question, right? So there are different solutions, right? But I will just mention some few, right? Let's talk about transportation, right? And I'm going to speak generally, right?
All right.
About some of these solutions that have been executed, right? So in transportation, we have what we call route optimization, right? So you have different organizations that have different footprints, different production sites in different locations, right? Some of the things we'll begin to look at, right, is something around how do you optimize your route? Because you want to move the shortest distance, right? If you have different production sites, you want to look at your network and say, if I need to distribute product from point A to point B, right? Where is the shortest distance to my production site, right? So you need to take a look at that. Then you also need to say, looking at all the SKU that you produce, for instance, you want to say, what do I need to do to ensure that each production site is able to service different, locations in terms of looking at route optimization. Of course, cost is also a factor when it comes to things like this, right? But what you want to do is to ensure that you are moving products from an optimized location in such a way that you are not traveling excessively, right? And what that will do for you is going to reduce your fuel consumption, right? And reduce your carbon footprint in terms of transportation, right? So that's one thing we look at. There is something we also call load optimization, right? And what that does for you is you need to be able to utilize what we call container, right, on your truck. What that means is these are basic things, right? But as basic as they are, you will be surprised that these things are not being done by some organizations, right? So you need to look at load optimization. How do you utilize a container on your truck, right? You want to do as much as 100%. Then you have organizations that also deal with reverse logistics, right? What that means is that you don't want any single truck to go deliver products and come back to your location empty. So how do you optimize reverse logistics, right? To ensure that you are fully utilizing your container. What that means for you is that it will reduce the number of trucks that you put on that you will put on the road, right? If you are actually utilizing your container close to 100%, right? So that's one of the things that you can also do. Then I've spoken about logistics. Let me quickly talk about manufacturing, right? What we want to do in manufacturing is to reduce use of resources, right? So you want to minimize the raw material you use to produce a unit of product without compromising quality, please, right? What that means is that you need to understand your sources of waste, right? So in your conversion process, right? And there are basic tools that you can deploy, right, to really understand those sources of waste. But what you see is that as basic as it is, you don't find that everywhere, right? People need to understand what we call root cause analysis. You want to understand, why are you generating waste? What is this? What are the sources of this waste? What can you do differently, right, to reduce waste, right? It goes through a different model, right, which you have to deploy, and you see that giving you the benefit in terms of waste abstraction. I've spoken, for instance, about energy and water usage, right? There are different mechanisms, things as basic as, for instance, the maintenance practice on heat exchanger, right? Can lead to excessive use or consumption of water or energy, right? So things as basic as that. But what you see generally is that people are not paying so much attention to details, understanding, what has to be done, understanding the root cause of some of these issues and dealing with them. Then let me now quickly go back to, what technology has done, right?
Okay.
For us in this space, right?
Okay.
Now we are in the world of Internet of Things, in the world of blockchain, artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
In logistics, for example, we have deployed what we call transport management systems, right? Which we help, right, to do the route optimization I've spoken about, load optimization. It will help you to do what we call efficient carrier selection. So you can select your carrier based on their footprint in terms of carbon emission. right? And this will also encourage carriers or transporter to go back and look at what do they need to do differently, right, in terms of reducing their carbon emission, right? TMS will also tell you the shortest distance, right, to move your product from a point to, to another point. It will help you in terms of your load optimization, and that can take you to consolidation of shipments, right? So instead of using 20 trucks, for example, you might just need 1 truck, right, to ship your product. And when you minimize the number of trucks you're using, what that does for you is that you are reducing your carbon emission, right? So technology has also helped, right, to, to improve our practices when it comes to sustainability. So as supply chain practitioner, what we need to continuously do is to explore those technology. One of the parts that I love the most is on transport management system, for instance, is the paperless documentation, right? Where you don't need to print proof of delivery, right, on paper any longer. You can do that online, right? So you go deliver a product, the guys you deliver the product to can 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 scan, right, and say, yes, I've delivered this product, upload it on TMS. And by doing that, you are not cutting down trees again, because you are now doing paperless transaction, right? So that's one part that TMS has also, done for us. So there are so many things that technology can do, right? We are still, in terms of maturity, we are still developing when it comes to use of technology, right, in this part of the world. But this is something that we need to focus on, and we need to put a lot of resources into, into the use of technology.
Thank you so very much. That was exhaustive enough. And like I used to say, we have to start looking at, yes, there's this general talk around mantra that we should think global but act local. I begin to adopt the solutions to challenges in America, for instance, or challenges that are peculiar to us in Africa or Nigeria. Yes, global policies can guide us, no doubt, but we have to begin to think local, identify with the challenges that are peculiar to our client. The challenges in Nigeria is from that to Ghana, and the solutions must also different. This is what you have done exactly, and the organizations you work with in a short while that you have been explaining. I want to thank you so very much. On a final note, any parting words? Do you have any parting words for supply chain practitioners in Nigeria and Africa, for new entrants into this business, for the environment at large? Just in 1 minute, what's your parting word? Any final word?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity once again. See, what I will say is that we need to strike a balance as supply chain practitioner between costs and sustainability, right? I know we are in business to reduce cost of goods sold, right? When you talk about sustainability, most likely the initial capital outlay might be huge, right? But as practitioner, we need to look at the benefit when it comes to sustainability, right? And making sure, like I said, we are not selfish in meeting our own needs while compromising, the need. The fact that the guys, the next generation, we also need to meet their own need, right? So striking a balance between cost and sustainability is extremely very important for us as supply chain.
Well, what it points to conclude. I like that. Just like I tell miners in my state, excavators, and after this you've explored, you've extracted gold and so on and so forth. What are the remediation plans, to reclaim the land that you have extracted gold from? This is about sustainability too. Okay, explored gold, you have extracted gold. And are you thinking of the future of other users of that same place?
Absolutely.
So I just relate that to supply chain and major facets of our endeavor. Keep it as much as we want to reduce cost, make money, more profit. We hold the environment.
Duty of care.
Duty of care. Thank you for that word. Duty of care, not to compromise, to sustain it the more. Thank you so very much. I cannot thank you enough because this notice was very short, and you graciously and magnanimously accepted to be here. I thank you very much. I hope that when we call you again, you will definitely oblige us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. John Fatomi and Oluwatomi Sin. I appreciate what you're doing around the environment, and thank you for what you do, and sincere appreciation for inviting me.
My pleasure, our pleasure. That of Nigeria, to Nigeria, to Africa. We say, yes, we will not compromise the environment. We will be conscious of what we do. And especially supply chain, in the supply chain industry, as far as this, the line of talk is concerned for this month. So thank you very much. And to our viewers, thank you. Till we meet again next month. It's a monthly initiative of the African Regional Chapter of the International Solid Waste Association. And what we do here is to get to talk to experts in different fields, how they've been able to manage their waste, talks around circular economy and in general, in particular, and sustaining the environment in general. So help us God. Thank you very much, engineer, once again.
Bye.
We appreciate it. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.